Welcome, Terry.
Thank you, Dad.
It was great. It is great to sit down and have this conversation with you. Before we, delve into specific conversation, I want you to, talk about yourself, your background and your education and your journey to before you're Allah.
Sure. Thank you, and thanks very much for the chance to have another chat with you. So I began in the disability sector actually almost 30 years ago in Queensland. I grew up in Queensland, where my family still lives, and I began in the disability sector then, and I spent 5 or 6 years working in disability before I moved into mental health and then health policy, and spent some time in government in Queensland and Victoria. And spent quite a long time actually there, and then a little over 2 years ago came back to the disability sector to this role at Urala, which is a return to the disability sector after a long time away. So,
And in terms of this transition of multiple sectors, and you're working in multiple sectors, what's the purpose and the culture changes?
Yeah, well, there are significant differences between the sectors, but there are some things they have in common as well. I personally think it's a really good experience to move from government to not-for-profit, from frontline to policy roles, because you learn things and bring things from each perspective back to the other. So, for example, if you work in government, you get a slightly wider view, you get a sense about how government makes decisions, why some of the rules are the way they are, and you get some sense as well about longer term directions. Whereas in service delivery, you're closer to the front line. You have an opportunity every day for contact with the people we serve, with their families, with frontline workers, which brings you a little bit closer to the reason why you're there. So there's some of the differences between the sectors, but there are some things they have in common. I mean, everybody I worked with in government was there to make a difference. So people in government also are committed to change and committed to outcomes for communities. There's just a different strategy, I guess, for how to go about doing it, and everyone has a different role in the system. So there's a role for frontline services, a critical role, obviously, for frontline services, but there's also a role for people in government, and a partnership between people in government, or in our case, for example, people in the NDIA and the sector and the community that lives with disability, all working together is a very important partnership, so everyone has a valuable role to play. So.